There's a famous Gemara in Yuma, and which tells us that Avram Avinu was Mekayim Kol HaTorah Kulo, that Avram Avinu, will see not just Avram, perhaps, and the Avos, Yitzchak and Yaakov and Yosef, but the Gemara does say Avram, which will be a Shuvas Harama, which wants to say, to answer up how Yaakov married two sisters. He wants to say it's Dafka Avram, but we don't. But that we'll get to that on that shir. But we assume it's the Avos. But the Gemara does say Abraham was Makai, and they quote the pasuk. So, and the Gemara says Afilu Eruv Tavshilin. He even kept Eruv Tavshilin, Avram Avinu. And what does that mean? He even kept, so Parshas, simple pshat, means Eruv Tavshilin, and we're very familiar with Eruv Tavshilin since we went through a 3-day yontiv. I guess it's a trivia question. The only bracha you can make on a Wednesday, because Thursday, at least in Chutz La'aretz, because Thursday in Israel you make it on a Friday. But the only bracha you have to make on a Wednesday, because they are tefillin you make it before Yontif. But either way, so why that simple pshat? To tell me even mitzvahs d'Rabbanan, Avram, that's how far it goes. Others point out more of a derech machshava. No, why Erev Tavshilin? What is Erev Tavshilin? It's about being able to cook on Yontif for Shabbos, to have food for your guests. It's all about hachnasas archim. Avraham, the symbol of Chesed. Erev Tavshilin is symbolic of the whole yisod of Avram Avinu. So I think it might be a Meshach Chachma like that. I forget who said it. It's not my own, but that's, I think it sounds like a Meshach Chachma or something like that. But either way, that's the pshat they say. So that's the Gemara. So there's a famous kasha they all ask, if it's true that Avram was Mekayim the whole Torah before it was given. So we have a problem. When we look in Parshas Lech Lecha, we see that Avram did not fulfill the mitzvah of milah, of circumcision, until after he was commanded. So the question is why? Why was milah an exception to the rule? Why by milah did Avram wait to be commanded, yet by talis, tefillin, and all the other mitzvahs, he did it on his own? So there's many answers to it. We'll start off the simple pshat that I heard from Rav Nissen Alpert, and others say it's Parshas, it's a bris milah. Bris is a covenant between two people. In other words, we know a peace treaty is meaningless if there's only one party involved. We don't have to look too far to see that. A peace treaty is only meaningful if the two parties who are going to commit to peace. So a bris is a covenant between God and Avram Avinu, and the Jewish people. If there's no other person, Avram just go ahead and do a bris on his own. There's no other party yet. So even though he intuited, he knew there was a God, but there was no bris yet, so therefore it doesn't make sense. Avram Dafka had to wait for a tzibah, because that's by definition, that's what bris, that's probably the simple pshat. Another famous explanation is the name of the Vilna Gaon, the Maral Diskin. I think they say also the Mizrahi. That we have a principle in the Gemara, Gado ha-metzuva v'yoseh b'she'ena metzuva v'yoseh. We have a principle which seems counterintuitive. Greater is the one who does a mitzvah who's commanded than one who volunteers and does a mitzvah. As Tosfos points out, of course, isn't it better to volunteer? Like, is it better for your kids to take the garbage out before you have to tell them? Or they should wait for daddy to scream at them? So Tosfos points out, of course what it means is, of course there's a level of volunteer which is on a higher level, but what it means is, it's harder to do. That when you, basically if you don't have to do something, big deal. So you show up and like I always give a mashal with in camp. The person, let's say, has a day off, and he decides to stay in camp, he can't get a ride out. Okay, so whatever, of course he goes to davening first, and then he goes to sleep or does whatever he does. Then whatever, he wakes up, he's in the mood, he'll wander over to the tennis court, basketball, whatever, swimming, wherever he shows. And then there's another guy, it's in the middle of Cold War, it's rest. You take us, if you wake up, he sees it's like 1 o'clock and he's running. Where do I go? Baseball field? Am I reffing, umping, playing? Like he's running around, like what to do? Well, what's the difference? Why is one in panic mode and one is just like chill? The difference is because the one who's on his day off, everything's coincidental. Like, okay, if I happen to be here, I do whatever I want. There is no purpose today. I could show up on the baseball field, the tennis, I do it. There is no plan. But the one who's in Cold War and the team knows he has to be somewhere. That's why, that's how they explain, the Bali Musar in terms of the difference between, someone who thinks that this here, everything's a coincidence, and therefore, well, then everything's, random, I could just do whatever I want. But if you realize you're here, God put you with the questions, what's my job? Then you have a mission. So either way, so they point out that Godol HaMetzuva V'Yoseh, it's greater because it's much harder to do. A lot of people, if you don't have to do something, it's easier to do. But when I have to do it, it makes it harder to do it. Hence the schar, the reward is greater. So if Gadol HaMetzuva V'Yosef, what does that have to do with Mila? So the end. So when it came to Talis, Tefillin, Erev Tavshilin, or any other mitzvahs Avram did, the fact I put on Talis today doesn't affect my mitzvah tomorrow, or the next day, or next year. So right now I want to volunteer to do Talis. And whenever God tells me to do it, then I'll do it b'Torah's Mitzuva V'Yoseh. But it doesn't take away me doing it now. But when it comes to Mila is a one-time shot. We hope the Mullah gets it right the first time. And therefore, Avram wanted to do it right. If you didn't want to do Mila, then maybe you could do Atavis Gabris or whatever he's going to do. But for Avram to do Mila, that means he'd mess up the opportunity. You want to do it in the ideal state of Gadol HaMetzuva V'Yoseh. Hence, Avram had to wait for Mila. That's why Mila is an exception to the rule, because that's only a mitzvah you can do once. Others point out a third explanation is he had to wait for the Sivoy, because the difference between Mila, if it wasn't a commandment of Mila would be usher to do. You can't volunteer Mila because there's a prohibition of Chavola, of injuring yourself. The extreme case suicide, you can't cut off your finger, you can't do an abortion, and that you can't do harm to yourself. So therefore, what's the heter? I can't volunteer, I'm in the mood, let me do a circumcision. It's usher. It's a biblical prohibition to do it. It's only the Sivoy of Mila that gives you the heter. So therefore, Avram wasn't able to do. So that's another school of thought. A fourth explanation is the more lamdisha one, is the Brisker Rav Chaim, the works. They want to say as follows. They want to point out that, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? I'll just give you the yesod, then we'll backtrack and elaborate on it. The yesod it's the mitzvah of Mila that creates the Chalo Shem Oro. It's the mitzvah of Mila which creates the concept of an Oro. In other words, the Isser called Oro. The Isser is to be an Oro. That you can't be an Oro, so therefore God gave us a mitzvah of Mila. But an Oro it's not a physical thing. I mean, it is a physical thing, but it's not just a physical. The fact that you have a foreskin, that didn't make you an Oro. In other words, before the mitzvah of Mila, there was no concept of an Oro. Like, there's nothing wrong. Big deal, you have a foreskin, you don't have a foreskin, who cares? It's only once God gave the Siva of Mila, okay, now I'm an Oro, okay, now I gotta get out of this status. And in fact, that's where the Meshach Chochmah is a beautiful shot. He fits in very well with this Brisker Rav. Because we find in this week's Parsha, it says in Lech Lecha al Panav, that when God appeared to Avram, he went down on his knees, and the Rashi says because of he couldn't stand, he was incomplete in front of the divine presence. So the Meshach Chochmah asks, like, what are you talking about? The Sifsei Chachamim asks, like, this isn't the first time God spoke to Avram, so how come all of a sudden now? We don't find all the times before Avram going down on his knees. So the Sifsei Chachamim writes, The Torah didn't tell us, but it happened. The Meshech Chachman says, no, I'll tell you the pshat. Because this is the pasuk right before, God just commanded out in the midst of Milah. Now you're in the midst of Milah, now you're in Aro. You're incomplete, you can't stand in front of a Yibal Apanav. So that's why it fits in very well with the Brisker Rav, so that once you need the Sivoy of Milah to create the Chalo Shem Aro. And this Yisod is actually, we'll see it's a Yerushalmi, it's a Rabbeinu Tam in Yervamis, that the Yerushalmi has an interesting question in terms of that we know that a Kohen Aro, a Kohen Aro can't eat Truma. And you can't be Sach Truma. So what about day 4? A 4-year-old baby, 4-day-old baby, Kohen, physically a Kohen Aro. Are you allowed to Sachim Shel Truma? So the issue is because the mitzvah of meal is not to day 8. So what's the pshat? In other words, the baby doesn't become an Aro until day 8, so therefore you'd be able to. So day 8 for sure you can't. The Yerushalmi raises the question, what about Leil Shmini? So, because even though you can't do the meal at night, but the question is the Chiyah begin at night, but except you can't do it at night, so that's the Yerushalmi has a suffix about Leil Shmini. So it's the same Yisod as the Brisker Rav. That's where he gets it from this Yerushalmi, that the mitzvah of Milah creates the status of Aro. In fact, that's I think it's Rabbeinu Tam in Yervamis, that the question is, let's say you have someone Meisu Achiv Machmas Milah. We know the halacha is that if 2 brothers die from Milah, the 3rd brother doesn't do the Milah. Well, discussion 2 or 3, but when you have people in the family dying from Milah, so the halacha is you can't do the Milah. It's a sakana. The guy's a hemophil. Could be later on, he gets older, healthier, maybe yes, but right now you can't do the Milah, right? Because it's a cheskes sakana. So let's say it's a Kohen. Does this Kohen have the status of an Aro? In other words, halach is telling me I can't do a Milah. So it depends. It's a machlokas rishonim. Some rishonim say he is an Aro. And I think Rabbeinu Tam says he's not. What's in the Kudas HaMachlokas? Whether he's an Aro or not. The issue is because those Rishonim who say he is an Aro, because they say the bottom line is, as long as you didn't take off the Chatichas Aro, you're an Aro. It's more of a Metzias issue. Okay, so Nebuch, you're an Aro. You're still an Aro, but it's not your fault. We're not going to blame you. Like Nebuch the Apikoris, Rav Chaim talks about. But Rabbeinu Tam I should say, the Brisker Rav is working with Rabbeinu Tam. Because what's the pshat of Rabbeinu Tam? It's the mitzvah of Milah. So therefore Rabbeinu Tam is learning, this could be also in the Kudah HaMachlokas. The other Rishonim hold no. You are chayiv in Milah, except you're an Anas. If you learn it that way, then he is an Aro. Rabbeinu Tam is saying no. He's not even mechuyev in Milah. And therefore he doesn't have this same Aro, and therefore, basically, he's not considered a Kohen Aro, he's just considered a regular Kohen. So that's in the Kudas, because that's the Brisker Rav Yisod here. Why did Avraham Avinu wait to be Mitzvah? So we had the simple pshat, the bris, you need 2 parties. You had Gadol HaMatzuvah, he wanted to do it right. You had that he couldn't do it because it was Asa, because it was Chavala. And the 4th pshat is the Brisker Rav, it's the mitzvah Milah that creates the Chalo Shem Aro, so there's nothing for him to do. If he would have cut up his Aro, it wouldn't have meant anything, because he wasn't an Aro before, and Milah is a change of status. And that doesn't happen until you get the mitzvah. So that's how they answer that. So just to go back, independent point, just to go back to the beginning of the Parsha, there's a fascinating Medrash Tanchuma a Medrash Pliya, we could say as well, on the first pasuk. You know, the Medrash Tanchuma, they usually quote a halacha. So what halacha do they quote on the pasuk of Lech Lecha? The halacha, if one's traveling on the road, and the Zman Kriya Shema comes, and it gets time to say Shema Yisrael Shavim Echad, so if you're saying pasuk Rishon, you have to stop. Stop your travels, and then you say it, but for the second paragraph, the first paragraph, V'ahavta Hashem Elokecha, the pasuk Echad, you have to stop, but for Parshas Rishona, you could go on. That's the halacha the Medrash has on this pasuk. So the Rabbi Alfred asks, like, what's the kesher? Avram wasn't saying Kriya Shema, Avram wasn't davening. Like, what's the Medrash telling me here? What's halacha here? What's the relevance to the parsha? Vayom Hashem al Avram Lech Lecha. So Rabbi Alfred explained as follows, and it's very nogeya, especially it's nogeya all the time, but especially nogeya in the beginning years of learning and yeshiva, etc. So he says like this: Avram was like about 70, 75 now. It was a midbar out there. Avram was the first one to recognize God, ethical monotheism. So you would think, like, what's God waiting to 75? Why didn't he send Avram out at 25, at 15? So the question is, why did God wait until now? Why wait for Avram Lech Lecha at 75, 70? It's a midbar out there. Why didn't God send them out at 13, 15, 20? So Rabbi Alfred explained the parallel. We know what does the Medrash tell us? What was Avram working on? What was Avram doing this whole time? The first 75 years of his life. Different Midrashim, how he was coming to find God, etc. He was working on his Kabbalah's Ol Malchus Shamayim. He was working on his own Emunah, Bitachon. He was working on himself. That he has to be strong enough. He has to be, also work out his own, before you have to work out the issues, and if you're going to go try to convince someone else about something, if you're not sure about what you think, then you're not going to be too persuasive to someone else. You have to have it worked out, and you have to actually believe in it. So you can't just be going through the motions. It's not going to work. So Avram was working on his emunah and bitachon, his first 70, 75 years of his life. So that's what the pasuk is telling me. When you're working on Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, you gotta stop. You need total focus on yourself. You have to make sure you have your hashkafas are in play. You have your learning down. You gotta. It's a turning inward. You have to work on oneself. Once one reaches the level of Kabbalah's Ol Malchus Shamayim, and you reach the level of Avas Hashem, then already you can do two things at once. You can already continue journeying and say and read the psukim, because you're ready on the stage. You're ready on stage 2, 3, or 4, and that's the challenge we all have in our own lives. It's always, especially today, today, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, especially when we're learning in yeshiva or even not. There's always there's so many programs going on, so many good programs. And the question is, do I stay in the Kosle Beis HaMedrash and sitting and learning? Do I go out on the Shabbaton? Do I do it once a year, once a month? Do I go out every week? Because they need me. If I don't go out there, what's going to be? Because no one had a greater need than Avraham Avinu. There was nothing out there. At least here there are other people, maybe they're not as good as you, or maybe there's not enough of them, but at least there's something out there. And that's what the Medrash is telling me. And that's the Yesod in life. It's not, it's not just in Kiruv now, it's throughout your life. You always go, it's in the beginning when you're learning, but it doesn't change. 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, you're always going to have challenges, whether it's balancing family life, balancing other issues, your job. It doesn't go away. But obviously, once a person has his own act worked out, it's much easier to be involved in other things. But if you don't have your core holding down, then it's going to cause problems later on. And that's the yisod that we learned from Avram Avinu, that Avram first had to work on himself and again, even Ramosha has in one of his chuvas, even if you're learning in Kollel, there's still a concept of Meiser, giving 10% of your time. So you always have to be giving something. But the question is, 10% is, that's what Ramosha says, everyone should always be giving. But whether you should be focusing 40, 50, 60% of your time, because the point is, it's how, the issue is always like this. Of course, if you look right now, you're giving over to more, but the problem is, how much substance do you have? So obviously the challenge is to be rolas hanolad. So I spend the time having more substance, working on myself, then when I finally, it's true I'm starting 3 years later and I'm 3 years behind the 8 ball. The one who says it's your chiyuv is first chayecha kodmin. Who said you have an obligation to someone else before you? You don't necessarily have a right to sacrifice your own growth for someone else. But even if you're assuming you did, that you had the option, but the bottom line is it a quick fix? Is if you go out with no background, there's a limited amount of kiruv you could do. But if you're coming out with a solid foundation, there's so much more should you give over. So it's not necessarily a matter of first come, first serve. A person has to already. And of course, different people are different. People are ready time. But that's the yisod we all have to deal with. When we're working on our Kabbalah, it has to be total focus. And once we already reach the next stage, then we can already venture out of the Ahavtas Hashem Elokecha. And that's the pshat, Lech Lecha, as Rashi writes, Lecha Lahanascha. The Rashi writes, you have to realize it's Lahanascha, to your own benefit. If you're just doing it because Kach Siva Hashem, which again that's a separate Rambam that writes, perhaps on certain things it is the highest level, as the Rambam writes that the highest level you should say, I want to eat treif, but God in heaven told me not to. But putting that Rambam aside for now, and we have to get into the context. But what the Mefarshim explained here is that if Avram didn't want, like you tell your kid, you have to go to school today, or you have to eat now, you have to going to visit, so the kid will go, he's a good son, he'll listen to you, but not that he accepts he's going to do it, but he's reluctantly going. So if Avram went reluctantly, it never would have worked. You can't go on a mission and around the world not really believing in it, but I'm going, well, okay, I guess it's the right thing to do, and then it's never going to work. It has to be it's lahanascha. You have to realize, ultimately you're doing it for yourself. What's the best thing for you? Your growth is to do it. You can't live a life of sacrifice. Well, it's not good for me, but I'll do it because it's good for everyone else. I'm not saying that there could be some element of that, but you can't live your life that way, or else it's never going to work. You're not going to have a chiyas. You have to actually do things. And therefore, that's what Rashi's telling us here. It has to be lahanascha. Anything you do in life is if you're just going through the motions, it's never going to work. Whether it's teaching or anything, in terms of that, you have to be like, I think someone asked a Rav once, let's say, I'm not sure what I should do. Should I go into teaching? I don't really want to do teaching, but if I did, I'd be a good teacher. Or should I go into, but I really want to be X. So we told him, you got to be X, because obviously, if you don't really want to be it, the cleanup's not the place for you. If the kids are mafriya, then it's not for you. You have to be, has to be realized. There's obviously, sometimes you could get both depending what level you're teaching, but it has to be something you feel you're growing at the same time. It has to be lahanascha. It has to be, you have to feel you're getting out of it. That was, and that's what Avram had. That's just to go back. That's what the contrast Avram and Noach. So the Rashi quotes the Chazal. Noach was makante amuna. Whatever that means on his level, but basically he believed the flood was coming. He didn't believe, because he didn't go into the ark until all the way at the end, until the water started coming down. So that's the pshat. So the Kedushas Halevi from the Hasidic, that's what Hasidic Pshatim do. That's not what It's not the pshat in the Chumash, but it's a good lesson to learn anyway. So what's pshat that Noach was makante amuna? So the Levi Medisha says he's makante amuna. He was lacking amuna in himself. You know why Noach wasn't matzliach? Because he was lacking self-confidence. He wasn't the Kedushas HaLevi, Levi Mibar Ditchup, he has a lot of nice pshatim, from the Hasidish. So he says, it's not, he says, when you're sitting in the Beis HaMedrash, you're sitting in the boardroom, you're in the doctor, if you don't have confidence in what you're doing, it's not going to work. That if Noach had his own self-doubt, so maybe I'm not good enough, maybe I don't deserve to be saved, maybe I'm not going to do it. If the bottom line, if you don't believe in yourself, it's not going to work. That's the whole essence of tshuva. That is, Rav Soloveitchik always points out, what we say, vidoy. Ashamnu, bagadnu, we say on Yom Kippur, but we know we have vidoy ma'aser, the expression in Parshas Kisavo. What's vidoy ma'aser? That before you bring your bikurim, you basically make a declaration, God, I did everything right, I made the brachas, I took off truma, I did everything. So the question is, what's vidoy? Usually vidoy, we assume oral confession as a tshuva thing. What's you call vida ma'aser when I'm doing everything right? So that's what the Rav Soloveitchik pointed out. A prerequisite for tshuva, kind of like some say in the discussion, is the first commandment in the Torah Dibros. Is that one of the commandments? Or it's not even one, it's a yesod. If you don't believe in God, then there's nothing else to talk about. So that's what that's what they point out here. That in terms of if you don't believe I can correct what I'm doing, if I don't believe I can do things right, if a person says I can't, what does I can't mean? I can't means usually it's I don't want, but they say I can't. What does I can't mean? I can't means I'm a failure in life because I can't. When we're saying I can't do the right thing. I'm not saying. Usually most people don't want to do it. It's not about today we usually interchange can and want. A lot of people don't know the difference between something they don't want to do and something they can't do. But basically when you say I can't is, I'm a failure. I can't, I know what I should be doing, I can't do it. So basically if you feel I can't, then there's no tshuva. What do you mean tshuva? Tshuva, what do you mean? Let's say I'm doing sin X, Y, and Z, or whatever I'm doing. If I don't feel, okay, if I say, I can't help myself, I'm not a tzaddik, I can't do, that's just me. So what do you mean tshuva? There's no tshuva. What are you doing tshuva on? If I'm not capable of doing better, then God can't expect me to do more. By definition, tshuva has to mean that you realize I can do better, I have the confidence to do better, and I'm going to try to change. If you don't believe in yourself, tshuva is a joke. You need you need a therapist. That's what you need. Because all you're doing is therapy. You're not able to get anything out of it. And that's the Noach was makante amunah. That's why he wasn't matzliach. Because if you don't believe it in yourself, you're not going to be able to convince. 120 years now, a lot of drushes. That's a long time for a Rav to keep a job and not getting one new congregant in. So that's the pshat here. Lech Lecha me'artzecha. It's Lech Lecha. It has to be lahanascha. If you're going to feel, if you, of course you have to feel you have the ability to do it. You can't have the self-doubt, but that's the prerequisite. But then you have to realize it's for you. You're the one getting the most out of it. More than the ani gets. The ani gets the dinner, but the act that changes your whole life eternally, it changes your neshama. That's what has, and that's the difference. Avram was successful because he wasn't makante amuna. He was able to do lachal hanaska. He realized that number one, he had the self-confidence, and he realized he could do better, and he realized it was his job that he was going to grow the most out of. He was going to turn from Avram to Avraham, and that's the pshat.